Your attention span is shrinking, and it's probably happening faster than you realize. If you've noticed that you can't concentrate the way you used to, that reading a full article feels like an effort, that your mind drifts constantly during conversations, that you sit down to work and somehow end up somewhere else entirely, you are not imagining it. You are not lazy, and you are not alone. Your brain is changing. And today we're going to talk about exactly why that's happening, what it means for your health and your life, and, most importantly, what you can do to reverse it. The first thing most people do when they notice they can't focus is blame themselves. They tell themselves they're undisciplined, easily distracted, not built for deep work. They try harder, feel frustrated when it doesn't stick, and quietly conclude that something is wrong with them. But here is what the science actually tells us. This is not primarily a willpower problem. It is a neurological adaptation problem. Your brain is one of the most responsive organs in the human body. It constantly reorganizes itself based on the environment it is exposed to, strengthening the pathways it uses most and allowing the ones it rarely uses to weaken. This is the same process that allows us to learn new skills and recover from injury. But it also means that when your brain is immersed, day after day, in an environment of relentless rapid-fire stimulation, it adapts to that environment. It rewires itself around it. And one of the casualties of that rewiring is the ability to sustain deep, deliberate focus. To understand why focus is declining so broadly and so rapidly, you need to understand something about the world your brain is living in. We are operating inside what economists and researchers now call the attention economy. The foundational principle of this economy is simple. The most valuable commodity is not money, oil, or data. It is human attention. And the platforms and technologies that dominate modern life, social media, streaming services, news feeds, mobile apps, are all competing with extraordinary sophistication for as much of yours as they can capture. The way they capture it is through your brain's own reward system. Every notification is a small, unpredictable reward. And unpredictable rewards are the most neurologically compelling kind. This is the same principle behind slot machines, and it is not a coincidence that the same behavioral psychology was deliberately applied to app design. Every scroll reveals something new, a microdose of novelty and social information that your brain evolved to seek out new and potentially important stimuli, responds to with a small release of dopamine. Every swipe, every like, every autoplay video that begins before you've decided to watch it. Each one is a tiny dopamine event. Individually, each is harmless. But collectively, at the volume most people experience daily, they are saturating your brain's reward system in a way it was never designed to handle. Former technology insiders, including early leaders at Facebook and Google, have publicly acknowledged that these systems were designed with an explicit understanding of human psychology and optimized to be as engaging as possible. Your attention is not a byproduct of these platforms. It is the product. Now, here is where the real damage begins, and understanding this changes how you see the focus problem entirely. When your dopamine system is repeatedly stimulated at a high frequency, your brain does something predictable. It compensates. It reduces the sensitivity of its own dopamine receptors in order to bring the system back into balance. This process is called downregulation, and it is the same mechanism behind tolerance in addiction, the reason someone needs more of something over time to feel the same effect. What this means in practice is that your baseline level of dopamine activity, the level at which ordinary, unstimulated life feels engaging, drops. And when that baseline drops, the contrast between the stimulation your brain has adapted to and the stimulation that real life provides becomes impossible to ignore. Reading a book, which requires sustained attention and delivers rewards slowly, starts to feel almost uncomfortable. Sitting with a single task without switching starts to feel like something is missing. Studying, writing, thinking through a complex problem, all of it begins to feel harder than it should, not because the task has changed, but because the brain now requires a higher level of input just to feel normally engaged. And so the brain begins reaching for faster stimulation. Another scroll, another video, another tab. Not because you chose to be distracted, but because your reward system has been recalibrated to find low stimulation environments genuinely difficult to tolerate. This is not a personal weakness. It is neurochemistry responding to its environment, exactly as it was designed to do. And this is where many people make an important and understandable mistake. They begin to wonder if they have ADHD. Let's be clear about something. ADHD is a real, well-documented neurodevelopmental condition with specific diagnostic criteria and a distinct neurological profile. If you suspect you have ADHD, a proper clinical evaluation is the right step. But many people today are experiencing something different, something that can look and feel remarkably similar to ADHD, but has a different cause entirely. Researchers and clinicians are increasingly referring to this as attention fatigue, a state of neurological overload in which the brain's capacity for sustained, voluntary focus has been genuinely depleted by chronic overstimulation. Dr. Gloria Mark, a researcher at the University of California, Irvine, who has spent decades studying attention and digital distraction, has found that it takes an average of 23 minutes to fully return to a task after an interruption. And in environments where interruptions are constant, where the average person switches tasks every 3 to 5 minutes, the brain never fully recovers its depth of focus between demands. Over time, this sustained cognitive load and chronic context switching depletes the mental resources required for deep attention. The brain doesn't stop working. It keeps going. But it shifts into a shallower, more reactive mode of processing, because that is what the environment has trained it for. The distinction matters, because the solution to attention fatigue is not medication. It is a deliberate change in input environment, and that is something every person has the ability to influence. Most conversations about focus treat it as a productivity issue. You can't finish your to-do list. Your work takes longer. You feel behind. But the real cost of declining focus goes much deeper than that. Focus is not just the ability to complete tasks. It is the neurological foundation of almost every high-order human capacity. Creativity requires the ability to hold an idea in mind long enough to develop it. Memory consolidation depends on sustained, attentive engagement with new information. Distracted learning produces shallow retention. Emotional regulation, the ability to respond to situations thoughtfully rather than reactively, is a function of the prefrontal cortex, the same brain region that governs sustained attention. When that region is chronically taxed and undersupported, emotional reactivity increases. Small frustrations feel bigger. Patience shortens. Relationships suffer. Research from Stanford University has found that heavy media multitaskers, people who frequently switch between multiple streams of digital content, perform significantly worse on tasks requiring focus, working memory, and the ability to filter irrelevant information compared to those who multitask less. The heavy multitaskers were not better at managing multiple inputs. They were worse at everything, including single-task focus. When focus declines, the quality of your thinking changes, and with it, the quality of everything that thinking produces. There is one more dimension to this, that almost never gets discussed, and it may be the most personally significant of everything we've covered. When focus declines gradually over months and years, most people don't identify the environmental cause. They identify the personal failure. They tell themselves, "I'm lazy. I can't follow through. I start things and never finish them. I used to be sharper than this. Maybe I'm just getting older. Maybe something is wrong with me." This internal narrative, the story people tell themselves about their own lack of discipline or diminishing capability, can quietly become a core part of how they see themselves. And that has consequences that go well beyond productivity. It affects confidence. It affects motivation. It creates a layer of self-criticism that makes the focus problem worse, because shame and anxiety consume the very cognitive resources that focus depends on. But here is the truth, and it is worth saying clearly. The epidemic of lost focus we are experiencing is not a generation of lazy, undisciplined people. It is a predictable neurological response to an environment that has been engineered with enormous technical sophistication to fragment attention. Your brain has not failed you. It has adapted to a world that profits from your distraction. Understanding that is not about removing personal responsibility. It is about directing that responsibility toward the right target. Focus is a neurological capacity, and like all neurological capacities, it can be rebuilt, but it requires the right conditions, applied consistently over time. Here is what the evidence supports. First, reduce your notification load immediately. Every notification is an interruption that costs your brain far more recovery time than it appears to. Turn off non-essential notifications. Batch your communication into defined windows rather than responding reactively throughout the day. This single change reduces the frequency of context switching and allows your attention to settle. Second, practice single tasking deliberately. Choose one task. Give it your full, undivided attention for a defined block of time. Start with 20 minutes if that's where you are, and build from there. Regular practice of sustained, single-task focus gradually rebuilds the prefrontal circuits responsible for voluntary attention. Third, reintroduce boredom intentionally. When you feel the urge to reach for your phone during a quiet moment, in a line, at a red light, waiting for a meeting to start, resist it. Sit with the discomfort. That discomfort is your dopamine system recalibrating. Over time, tolerance for low stimulation environments rebuilds, and with it, the capacity for deep focus. Fourth, protect your sleep. Sleep deprivation is one of the most reliable ways to impair prefrontal function and attention. Even one night of poor sleep immeasurably reduces cognitive performance and attention span. Prioritizing sleep is one of the most direct investments you can make in your brain's ability to focus. Fifth, spend time in nature. Research on attention restoration theory, developed by psychologists Rachel and Stephen Kaplan, has shown that time in natural environments, even brief exposure, allows the directed attention system to recover from fatigue, meaningfully improving focus and cognitive performance afterward. None of these require a dramatic life overhaul. They require consistent, deliberate choices about what you allow your brain to be exposed to. That is not a conspiracy. It is a business model, and it is working, which means that protecting your focus is no longer something that happens by default. It requires an active, ongoing decision. But here is what makes that decision worth making. Your focus is not just a productivity tool. It is the mechanism through which you experience your own life. It is how you are present for the people you care about. It is how you do work that matters. It is how you think clearly, feel fully, and show up as the person you want to be. Your attention is among the most valuable things you possess. protect it accordingly.